Welcome to episode 38 of season 5 of Whole Lot of Wolves. I'm Joshua Buckley with co-host Paul LePage.
Hello.
In New York, our producer, Alex Patakis.
Hi.
And on socials in Baltimore, it is Danny Paletti.
Good evening.
I have to figure out, because I didn't have my screen mirrored there, who I was pointing to. Well, guys, the win streak is definitely over now. It was over after Man City, and then couldn't get the good vibes going again. A 2-0 loss to Brighton on Saturday. Paul, it appears as though the manager of the month curse strikes again.
It's back. Yeah. You always like to see those nominations. You always like to see the Play of the Month nominations. I think multiple ones of those. Sarabia's goal against United was in there. But you're right, there's something about that cursed Manager of the Month award that didn't favour us too kindly this week in particular.
Well, Danny, what also did not favor us too kindly was the starting 11 this week. No Strand Larson again. Although he did play, he didn't start due to him coming back from this hamstring injury. Giancarlo Guedes did start because Vitor said it was obvious last week they couldn't play Cunha as a number 9. So what did you feel about that, especially after hearing Vitor's statement after the game?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit odd, I think, because I'm not really to blame Vitor on this, but I'm feeling a bit of mixed messages just in terms of before the game saying that, there were no gifts being given out in terms of playing time and just sort of chopping and changing when we know that, we were much more fluent during the middle of that run where we were able to keep the lineup the same. And I don't know. I saw some people online saying that like, oh, well, this is good. You got to see if Guedes is good enough to stay. And I just think that like the decision on that is really not going to have a whole lot to do with what he can do on the field. I think people at Wolves and even Vitor Pereira will have long known what exactly Guedes can bring to the field and what he can't. He's a player who like has been disinterested in the past to the point of being left out entirely due to attitude or whatever Vitor would allude to. And so I didn't really see a ton of value in that, even if it's like technically he's the better player for that moment, whether it be better for Munetzi to be a false 9 or Bellegarde to be a false 9 or Cunha to be a false 9, like if Guedes is really the first choice in all those bad choices, I kind of still don't see with 3 games left what we got out of that.
We definitely did not get an increase in Guedes' value, Alex. It was really a stinker. Not like probably one game affects his value that much, but there was just... You could have argued Wolves would have had a 2-0 league if JSL is in there instead of Guedes.
Yeah, because I think one thing JSL does well that Guedes did do okay, I guess, was get into positions to score from. But Larson also is a good finisher, and Guedes clearly did not have his shooting boots on. Had the ball stuck under his feet on that peel back pass that seemed like it was going to be a definite chance, and that was really disappointing. And more than anything for me, I mean, I know that a lot of people other than Vitor have turned their attention towards the summer, and it's something we've talked about a lot. But I hope that and I know Guedes is like, it's probably a foregone conclusion he'll be gone anyway, and I'm not saying that this is solely about him, but just if Larson wasn't fit to play 90 minutes or fit to start, whatever it may be, just a gentle reminder that a second striker that can also play striker that wouldn't have to change the way we play, it would be a really nice thing in this summer, right? Like, so if you're going to get 60+ million pounds for Matheus Cunha, I really feel like you could stand to spend like 10 on a striker who isn't somebody that feels like he has to be starting every Premier League game. but can come in as a sub and can also offer something when Larson is unable to go and give it his all. I hope that is something that we see this summer, because Vitor has a clear way he wants to play. We just need more players who can play that way, I think.
Mm-hmm. Wherefore art thou, Nathan Frazier? Struggling, no goals in 4 matches.
You could still bet on him to score on a lot of the apps still. They don't adjust their bets. And I might have been extra angry at Gonzalo Guedes for reasons that may have to do with goal scoring props, but that's neither here nor there. Nobody wants to hear about my stupid ill-advised bets.
I do. I enjoy it. Paul, was that the last we saw of Guedes in a Wolves kit?
Potentially, I think with certainly with Strand Larson hopefully being fit and back to starting, it still doesn't seem like he's even thought of like as first choice off the bench. It was a strange one, just because I was not eagerly anticipating, but it brought back some memories of that Villa performance, and I thought it would be that type of game and that type of opponent where we could have thrived in. So whether it was just, and even saying that though, he didn't score in that game with 2 glorious chances as well. So is he actually that cut out for putting the ball in the back of the net consistently against decent competition? That's probably a no. So I think he'll be a bit part player from the bench, but I think it's even it could even be less than that. I think just with the players in front of him and maybe the ones that Vito wants to see a little bit more of as we wrap the season up.
Man, we are going to take some losses on some players with Silva and Guedes. Well, Danny, Wolves couldn't score. Brighton got on the board first, but then it was pulled off with VAR. They said Minta was actually offside and obstructing Saw's view on Danny Welbeck's goal. What did you think about that?
Right call. Yeah, no, I mean, it was pretty obvious, and obviously the main thing is just checking that he even is offside, because it was fairly close. But if that's not obstruction, I don't know what is. I know that everybody likes to talk about sight lines and whatever, but maybe we've been over this before, I'm sure, with all VAR stuff we have. But I'm less concerned about sight lines when it comes to obstruction, and more concerned with, like, is there a credible chance that the player can play the ball? Like, it's a close offside. Jose Sa doesn't know that he's going to be offside. For all he knows, he's a half an inch onside. And the fact that he can stab out his foot and that ball can either go in the far corner or the near corner, like, completely changes it. So I don't know. I didn't see a lot of negative reactions to that call. It took too long, as it always does. But that's exactly what that rule is for. It's, it's exactly the kind of obstruction that would make it impossible to be a goalkeeper.
I did not have. Go ahead.
I don't think it was a makeup call, but I certainly think there's been a precedent set around him now that if that happens, it's like an automatic cancellation of the goal just based on everything that we just mentioned. It's either one or the other. And in all of that scenario from Saturday, it's just easier to say there's that obstruction going on. We're going to rule it out. And like anything, as far as this goes, I suppose, if we have to put up with this BS, at least have some consistency. So that's somewhat in our favour, but it doesn't really, it's not really making up for anything that we've been on the wrong side of previously.
I had no faith that it was going to be overturned, Alex. Did you?
I agree, I think, with what everybody said, but I didn't think it would be overturned. And I thought that maybe, like, there would be some type of explanation that we've maybe never heard of before or whatever. I still think there's not, like, consistency and clarity on judgment calls a lot of times. So I was very up in the air about that one. I didn't have a ton of optimism.
Well, it didn't take long for Danny Welbeck to get that goal,
Told you.
just as Paul had predicted last week. I mean, you just knew that was going in as soon as he went down, right?
Yeah. Even to the extent of there was somewhat of confidence for Sarr against Vardy's penalty the other week when they flashed up that graphic about where he was putting the balls on his PKs. But even doing that this week, you just had that unnerving feeling that it didn't really matter and the ball would go one way and Sarr had dived the other. So it was very, very inevitable.
Danny, was that Cunha's fault, or could that have kind of been put on somebody else's for just the giveaway right there at the edge of the box?
I mean, I think, taking away my saltiness around Mateus Cunha, if this were the middle of the season and there wasn't all this nonsense around him, I don't think we would be very quick to say, oh, it's 100% Cunha's fault. He shouldn't have been doing what he was doing. But that being said, it's hard to blame anybody but him in this scenario. So I guess what I'm saying is that, like, yes, it's his fault, but maybe not one that we would be up in arms about if we were just in the middle of a normal run of games and thought positive things about Cunha generally. But it is just annoying because it's even though it's not the most egregious example, it is another example of, us playing Cunha ball whenever he's on the field, whether that's by design or the sort of gravitational forces that he sort of emits and seemingly on purpose, to receive the ball at every possible instant. Like, does he need to be that deep? We have players who, I'm repeating some very good talking points from some other people, but we have other players who have received balls like that under pressure during our good run. Basically since the new year, Andre and João Gomez, and they have not really made those mistakes. And so it's just, Cunha certainly has the technical ability to receive that ball in that place. He's done it before, but it's extra frustrating when we're spending most of this game and the previous game trying to get him the ball constantly, and he has a bad touch, and then he has a really bad tackle, which, I mean, thankfully, there's the double jeopardy rule, and he couldn't get a red card, because I think if that's outside the box, that could very well be a red card. So pretty disappointing way to concede a penalty all around.
That would have been the fitting end probably to his Wolves career, would have been getting a red card right there. Yeah. It was a shame, Alex, because I felt like for most of the first half, Wolves were the better team, especially Andre and João Gomez. I mean, they were dominating at the midfield for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to say that once you look at the result and then you think that Wolves just spoiled all the Guedes chances at the beginning of the match, and they didn't really have any other real clear chances after that they were still really, really good. But they just looked very comfortable. They looked comfortable for the duration of the match, other than the penalty, which I think, we've already talked about. It was the right call. It was a bad job by Cunha. You can't blame the defending on that. I thought they defended really well, and I think they continued to do so throughout the course of the game until it was very obvious that they threw everything at it and just went with like an all-out like turbo lineup, like screw positions and defending, and let's just like run this thing like a basketball game end to end. So yeah, it's disappointing. I mean, it's encouraging to see though, right? Because they also weren't particularly bad against Manchester City, and Brighton are a good team who is still fighting for Europe. So say what you want about Wolves and being checked out or on the beach, whatever that might be. But if that's their on the beach performance against a team that still has a chance to qualify for Europe, then that's not all too bad of an on the beach performance. So, and again, like you said, Josh, a lot of that does come down to the midfield. They clearly gave it all. I mean, Andre was like, there were no legs left under that little body wearing number 7 by the end of that match, by the time he came off the pitch. And
yeah,
yet another thing where it's like, we have these kind of players. It's like the second they come off the pitch, it's so obvious to see we don't have anyone else who can do what they do. So I know we all want the number 10. We want those attacking mids to play behind a striker, but like Boubacar doesn't get any run, to try to play the Andre role. Like, do we have another defensive midfielder that we even trust, or do we just not? I mean, I know we used 4 subs by that period, but by that point, but yeah, it's like give the guy a break. Like, why are we running him into the ground for what are basically now like almost useless, not useless, but like, somewhat meaningless fixtures at the end of the season?
And they mentioned on the broadcast he's still going off the start of the Brazilian season as well. So he's well through 12 months of games, I think, now.
Oof, brutal. Well, he got a little break in there with Gary O'Neill.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he got a nice little month in there where he couldn't be found in the lineup. It's ridiculous. Alex mentioned that all-out attack substitution. Paul, out came Doherty, Guedes, finally, João Gomez, and Cunha, and in came on Rodrigo, JSL, Sarabia, and Bellegarde. What did you think of those subs, especially Cunha coming off right there?
I think just the 4 subs to begin with was good, because it's like I'm not afraid to try anything. If I could see things that need changing, I'm going to do it. And in with that goes the players, and that no one's untouchable. If someone's trying to impact a game and it's not coming off, then you're just as much likely to get subbed as the next guy. So I think that goes to show some strength of character of Vita, for sure, that he's not worried to make those types of calls. And I was really looking forward to. I saw those subs. I saw that João Gomez was one of them. I thought, well, at least Bellegarde's coming on, and he'll take up that centre midfield role. Could potentially be a more attacking, driving threat from a number 8. Again, back to that type of Villa performance where he excelled. But out wide he went, and Menezes came in as like a dedicated 8/10, like real polar opposites compared to where Andre was and what Andre was doing. And I genuinely don't know. And I've been largely, I see Menezes' role for the team. I've largely tried to keep criticism of the individual pretty minimal, just based on results and performances and everything. But I generally don't think he touched the ball after those 4 subs.
Who loves the other more? This is for Alex. Does Rodrigo love his wife more, or does Vitor love Menezes more?
Yeah, I mean, Menezes clearly is in Vitor's favor. Paul was talking about his role. I think his role next year is going to be a scapegoat once Matheus Cunha is gone, because he's just such an easy player to. It's just all the things that he does well aren't things that like jump out to the naked eye when you're watching a match at a pub, and all the things he does poorly certainly are. So he's an easy target. And yeah, it's tough, but hopefully, in an ideal world, he's a bench player next season that can come on and give you that energy, because I don't know what else he's really bringing other than that energy and physicality right now.
Yeah, he definitely runs a lot more than Guedes does, for sure. He's definitely one of those guys where you bring in after 60 minutes and say, go run it out. Like, make life a little miserable press, but just for a whole 90 minutes, I don't know. Paul, I know you definitely thought Wolves were going to tie that match up. Unfortunately, they didn't, and Brighton scored the final goal in the 85th minute to win 2-0. However, what was interesting, Danny, was another Matheus Mane, made his Premier League debut for Wolves. What did you think about that?
It was pretty exciting. I mean, we've seen him be on the bench, for several weeks now. In sort of strangely, a lot of us expect, even for a 17-year-old who's thought very highly of, and, people have said he has a future in the team, that he's still displacing, the likes of Tommy Doyle. And, we just kind of assume that Mane's not going to get any time. So what's the point even? You might as well have Tommy Doyle be on there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know a ton about him. I've only watched him for the youth ages a couple of times. Every time he plays for the under 18s, it seems like he scores. There's constantly notifications from the Wolves Academy Twitter account saying that he's scored another goal. He seems to be thought highly of. I don't know how much of that is just, pumping him up to potentially send on loan in the summer. I know Vitor recently said that he's going to be part of the first team next season, but that's very much a let's see what happens in the summer, because it can go either way. Even if he stays, it can be a real positive that he is really ready for the Premier League. And that would be a very exciting thing to look at next season. Or it could mean that we haven't signed anybody to really sit in those forward positions with Larson, and we're going to rely on a 17, maybe 18-year-old. So, like I said, we'll see.
Danny, what were you doing at age 17?
Oh Lord, don't even want to know. Nothing fun and nothing interesting, and I wasn't cool.
Alex?
Based on that, I think it's Jeff Shee's way of saving some money, because he can't have a shirt sponsor of a betting company on because he's 17. So ain't got to worry about the shirt printing for that.
Is that right? Is that in the rules that he can't have that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's why
so
he came
on. He was with a sponsorless shirt.
Oh, I did not know that. Alex, what were you doing at age 17? Not starting in a Premier League game.
Not starting a Premier League game. Beginning what has turned out to be a long and fruitful drinking career, I think, is what I was doing at 17.
I want to know what Paul LePage was doing at age 17 in Wolverhampton.
Well, yeah, given my height, I was doing a lot more than I should have been at that age, thanks to being able to get in places with fake IDs and not look out of place. So
I bet you were the one that everybody called to get the cats out of the trees too.
No, I'm the grandma's favorite in the grocery store. I've only got to wear my khakis and my red t-shirt in Target, and I could generally have a job there of getting stuff from the top shelf.
Did I tell you somebody mistook me for one of the Wolves employees at the mega store, even though I was wearing my cowboy hat?
I didn't know that, but
yeah, I was surprised as well. She was asking me, and then I realized, oh, she thinks I work here. Okay.
Did she hear your voice also before she mistakenly?
Yeah, right.
You as an employee, just curious.
Yeah, not exactly that Birmingham yam dialect there. So Matheus Mane could be a part of the team next year. Matheus Cunha, we know he's not only looking like Manchester United, but Arsenal and Newcastle also kind of taking a peek. I'm with Danny. I don't know where he'd fit in on some of these squads. The other one is Rain Aitnari, who Vitor Pereira said, I want to sign to a contract extension, Paul. And he has George Mendes as his agent. Okay, could be possible. Until George Mendes isn't his agent anymore now, Paul. Chances that Aitnari remains part of Wolves.
You look at it two ways. So has he ditched Mendes to get off the carousel? In that he might want to stay, and he doesn't like that, the potential for him to go one place and go to the next. Like, I've got no detail or anything about his new agency, but it could be a choice purely based on based on ethics or his general outlook in where he sees his career? Does he want to stay with an agent who's potentially more in it from himself than his clients? And has this change been a positive one for him based off his character and everything? Who knows? I think like Vitor saying that he wants to stay, like, does that cast any doubt now, this change with agent based on John Percy coming out with an article and saying that they're going to look into a long-term contract offer? You can look at it both ways, and the we'll see soon enough, I think, and I don't know, it could go generally either way now.
Danny, I think you're with me that you think he's gone.
Yeah, I think that the preponderance of the evidence points in that direction. But I take Paul's point. I think that, the Mendes carousel, none of us really know how the players feel about it. I mean, obviously, every player wants to, reach the highest level that they can, and also reach the highest level of monetary compensation that they can. And Mendes has certainly done that for a lot of people. But I think that, these players also aren't necessarily stupid. They might be young, but they aren't necessarily stupid. And there's a ton of evidence also of players, and especially if you're a Wolves player, of people who've sort of been cycled around and shuffled around. It's not really worked out. I mean, Brian Nori talks to Gonzalo Guedes nearly every day. There's a guy who was pressured and plucked and moved around, and it hasn't really worked out for him. And how many years has he been with us and out on loan and et cetera? And that's not a particularly exciting career to look forward to. Same thing with Fabio Silva, like his career has been fully derailed, whatever comes next. And so, I don't know. I do hold out a small amount of hope that, this is at least getting off of the well-worn tracks for Ryan Aït-Nouri. But that being said, he could very well go, and I think it's very likely. And I think even more so because the powers that be at the club will be looking at the bottom line on that one. And he's one of our most saleable assets.
Minus $8 million, remember that, or 8 million pounds. Euros. I don't know. I guess it would be euros. Whatever. Alex, here's another. Did you know that George Mendes and his agency has a luxury box at Molineux Stadium?
No. Did you find your way in there?
No, but I was walking by and I was like, oh, hello. It was right next to Matheus Cunha's box. Hwang Hee-chan's box was right there. But in between Hwang Hee-chan and Matheus Cunha was a box that was co-owned by two players. Pablo Sarabia is one. Who is the other player that shares that box? He purchased that box for the season with Pablo Sarabia.
Oh. This is a tough one.
It's going to be really tough when you hear the answer, too.
Is it like Dan Bentley or something?
No, that would be funny, though. You got any ideas, Paul or Danny?
I'll take a guess. You wouldn't necessarily think he'd be a match for Sarabia, but I want to say Matt Doherty.
Matt Doherty? Okay. Danny?
My guess would be Sasha. I don't know why, but it rings a bell.
It is Mr. Mario Lemina.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. As to why it's extremely tough.
That was a non-refundable purchase at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, Jeff's not. There's no give backs on that.
So Sarabia is probably like, sweet, I got this. I got this box for my family the rest of the season. Hot dog. Well, that was it for the men this week. Wolves women, we kind of hit on it last week, Danny. A statement finally came out. We'll let you kind of talk on that. But Wolves did say they will apply for second-tier status annually going forward. You think it's kind of empty promise, though?
Yeah, I guess just to run through quickly what was said. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it is kind of what we've come to expect, unfortunately, from these kinds of statements, especially when Jeff Shee's name is beside all the quotes. But it's a lot of Wolves women are a vital part of our football family, and etc. And we know that it requires strengthening. But in terms of actual promises, it's pretty thin on details. Says moving forward, we will apply for the Tier 2 license on an annual basis in line with our sporting achievements, which I would like to point out is a pretty vague conditional there. But I guess what we are led to assume they mean is that, like, if we're credibly in the title chase, that we would apply for that Tier 2 license, which again kind of feels bare minimum territory, like it should have already been done. There's a few other things here, but again, very vague in terms of how this actually sets Wolves women up for the future. So talking about a leadership group and a Wolves women dedicated, I can't remember what they call it, committee or whatever, to plot the future, and then regular meetings with the club hierarchy and team leaders to sort of stay on course. And that's all fine and well. And I think that, like, it's hard to get excited about it because it feels like, this is kind of stuff you already should have done. Wolves were seen as kind of progressive a few years ago before the England women won the Euros in bringing their team in-house. A lot of teams hadn't done that yet. And so, training in Compton, using the facilities, these were all things that were fairly new then. And it feels like a lot of these things should have gone hand in hand with that, or at least been, part of the 5-year plan that we would have been progressing through at this point. So not all that exciting. One thing that is, I think, very good that, the people on Wolves Women Pod have been calling for years, but they're going to appoint someone to be a full-time commercial lead to help support the growth of revenue for Wolves Women. I think that's a really positive step. I also think that it is like an incredibly, like, why are we only just doing this now? Because, like, if the main complaint is that it's not self-sustainable, which is preposterous because spending on Wolves Women doesn't count for PSR, and also the spend is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. But if that is the thing that I've been being beaten over the head with online about, well, are the Wolves women, self-sustainable? Well, we haven't even attempted to. Josh, you were just in the mega store. There is, as far as I am aware, not a single item that even mentions the existence of Wolves women. You can get a shirt with their name on it, of course, if you ask. But that's kind of it. And it's like, if you want to make money off of this, then you have to actually try. You can't then complain that they're not making money. So yeah, it feels very much like kicking the can down the road. I think that the concerns for the people who follow, like me, and the people at Wolves Women Pod are still there, that, these are broken promises. And a lot of these players came from promotion chasing teams. And are they going to want to go another season knowing that there really isn't a firm commitment on funding, on a plan to go full time eventually? It doesn't have to be, oh, sorry, we messed up, let's go full time instantly, but just a plan to progress to full time, which is the future. It's certainly the future of Tier 2. And as we've seen, Tier 3 is starting to have, between 2 and 4 teams that are full professional as it stands. So that's the future of Tier 3. So do we have a plan for it? It seems like we still don't. So fully bit of both territory, and I wish it was a better update.
I think the part that I enjoy the most is that Matt Hobbs was the one that had to have the meeting. There was no report of Jeff Shee even showing up to that meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I was telling someone online that it's kind of classic, toxic workplace behavior. I think we've all been there, where the big boss messes up, and then it's someone adjacent or under him that has to go do the apology, which obviously doesn't help in terms of it sounding sincere, but also that job really sucks. Like I'm not going to sit here and absolve Matt Hobbs of wrongdoing and all this, but I don't envy him the task of having to go say I'm sorry for something that was essentially Jeff's decision.
Yeah.
No Stupid Questions is brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. Whether you're toasting some Vino de Vitor or winding down after a day of work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of wine country with each sip. Now at esfuerzowines.com, you can use the promo code VITOR, that's VITOR, at checkout to receive a 30% discount off your order. And don't forget to try the special edition 1-pack wines to show your passion and support for Wolves with each glass. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their product responsibly and in moderation.
All right, time for everyone's favorite part of the show, No Stupid Questions, brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines, where you, the listener, have a chance to ask anything at all in relation to Wolverhampton Wanderers. For those of you who are watching on the live stream on YouTube, at A Whole Lot of Wolves on YouTube, feel free to throw your question in the chat. Same goes if you are watching us on our Facebook feed at A Whole Lot of Wolves. You could always ask your questions via X at WLW Pod is the show's handle there, or you can email us hello at wholelotofwolves.com. So feel free to send your questions in now, and we will get to some of these that we have gathered prior to the show, including this from King Wolf 84 on X, who asks, if Jeff Shee told you that Wolves play in old gold and black, would you believe him, or would you have to go and double check? I think this plays into the conversation we were just having about
I mean, we already can't decide what old gold actually is, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. Paul,
Yeah,
which
which heart emoji do you use? I think I already know Paul's answer. Which heart emoji do you use if you're doing a gold and black heart? Do you use the one that's more yellow or the one that's more orange?
Paul?
Is this a question for Paul, or are we supposed to
For
answer
any
what
of
we
you?
think?
Oh,
Okay.
There's no right answer.
I use the yellow because I can.
Kind of feels like whatever Paul says will be the right answer, though. That's why I think we're scared to answer.
Yeah, didn't this get proved like online, and it was the majority came down on the more yellow one?
Oh yeah, I was the one who did that.
Yeah.
I've always been the more orange one, but I think I've come round to the yellow one. But
Yeah,
it's gotta
that's
be
funny because
alongside the black one.
I went the opposite way. I always did the yellow one, and then when what I did was I used I had a sample of the hex code for the actual logo beside both hearts, and it's way, way closer to the more orange one, just visually. But yes, I do recall that the yellow one received the most votes, so I don't think we have an answer.
I will say one of the kits that I really fell in love with, it was more orange. So there you go. That was the money shop year.
Oh yeah. Yeah, generally I think I would go yellow on the heart. But I'm happy to be wrong if that is the wrong answer, or they're all acceptable, perhaps.
If Jeff Shee told me that Wolves play in old gold and black jerseys and old gold shorts, I might say, oh, actually, that's a pretty good choice you've made there. Why don't you keep it up? But I don't think that stuff happens very often from his lofty towers.
Yeah, well, they were back in the black shorts this weekend, right?
Yeah.
Which was
they were
slight
for the
deviation.
match I was at too.
Oh, they were? Okay, yeah. I do love when they go all gold there. Question from last week's guest, Drew Breyer at Drew Freakin on. Be worse, Kevin Danso winning a trophy or Man United? This is, of course, in reference to the Europa League final, which pits two bottom dwellers in the Premier League, Tottenham Hotspur against Manchester United. What's worse, Danzo or just Man U in general winning?
I don't care about Danzo. Whatever. He's
Yeah, and like he doesn't even play really, right? Because he's injured. And then is he playing now? I don't know. How much can he really claim to have played any role in them winning something? But like, if Spurs win something, can we keep going with the conversation about them never winning anything? So in a way, I feel like I'd rather United win. Plus, then like, yes, they'll get European money, but I don't trust them at all to spend it wisely. They will then probably need to try to rebuild in a hurry, which I think will not suit them well, because they will have to go through the grind of a Premier League season and the Champions League, and they're not going to want to get embarrassed in the Champions League. So they're going to spend a bunch of stupid money on more players and probably ultimately fail. And then Amorim, who's a good man, somewhere else, and they will suffer. And that's what I'm rooting for. So I just talked myself into it. I'm rooting for United.
There we go. I like it. You made a bravo case there. Bravo.
Anyone want Spurs to win this? I mean, it would be kind of funny that Harry Kane and Spurs both win a trophy in the same season.
I feel really torn because I think, like most football fans who aren't Spurs fans, I would really have a hard time letting go of the Spurs don't win trophies banter. But there is a part of me that feels that it's objectively funnier if they win and get Champions League, and that somehow keeps Ange in the job when we've all said that
yeah,
fired. And conversely, it doesn't matter what the result is, Amorim is staying. And so when you flip that and suddenly like Amorim maybe should get fired, but he definitely won't, and Ange really ought to get fired, but now maybe he doesn't, like maybe that's funnier. Am I willing to let go of these Spurs don't win trophies thing? I don't know. Yeah, it's awful. I can't believe one of them is going to end up playing Champions League. It's a crime against the sport.
It's almost like I don't know who would be more likely to do the right thing, and that if Spurs were to win, they probably still should fire Ange, but I don't know if they do it. And if Man United were to win, they should probably proceed with like a long-term rebuild plan, but I don't think that they will do it. And instead they will panic buy players, one of which is probably going to be Matheus Cunha. So like, I think I'd rather be the team to lose. I don't know. Oh man.
Yeah. I mean, I guess selfishly having United win, really opens up the coffers for them to just say, screw it and get Cunha in instantly and overpay for his wages so that hopefully the deal gets done quickly. So if there's any chance of hustling that deal along, I guess it lies in United winning. So maybe I take that one.
That's the right Wolves answer on the Wolves podcast. Like mine is just about how much shit we get to talk about the other fan bases, but it is probably also truly in Wolves' best interest for United to win, I would say, and get that European money. So yeah, great question, Drew. And then somehow, some way, we have to talk about Fabio Silva. I think, Josh, you have a question you wanted to throw in here as a little bonus.
Yes, I do. With Burnley's interest in Fabio Silva reported, what would you include in a swap with Fabio to get keeper James Trafford from them?
Ooh. So you're saying we need to give more than Fabio to get their keeper, right?
Yes.
So what would you throw in to sweeten the pot?
Yep. It could be money. It could be orange chips. It could be a testicle. Is whatever.
A kidney.
I'd probably consider all of those.
Can we put a chief executive in the mix?
No. JJ Watt would destroy Jeff Shee on Twitter. It would be glorious.
Oh man, yeah, that's good. I mean, we've got a couple players we could probably do to part ways with.
Generally, it's got a Tommy Doyle written all over it.
Oh yeah, that's a great answer.
Ooh, so Fabio and Tommy Doyle for James Trafford. I would do that. Would you guys?
Tommy Doyle on loan. I just want to be clear, right? We're not giving him to them.
Hey, Trafford's going to be a stud, man.
Oh, man.
He kind of already is.
Fabio Silva going to Burnley would just be hilarious. And I
so strange.
would confidently say that his like Premier League goal tally by the end of next season might not even move from what it is currently. If he goes to Burnley, oh man, stay in Spain, dude. Like, just go live your life. Go keep scoring goals in the sunshine. Enjoy yourself. Be free of this, please. That's what I wish for Fabio.
Whatever Mendez wants. And one more question. What should Nuno's response have been to the Nottingham Forest owner who came out in his 5XL white t-shirt because nothing else fits in England?
Oh man, that was something.
What did you think when you saw that, Paul? This, the white Kool-Aid man walking out there to he said it wasn't about Nuno, it was about medicals or something. I don't know.
I think, I don't know if it's just me, but I think he's horrible, just as an individual and a character, and probably everything that is wrong with this game that we all love. It's all summarized in that individual, but I don't know. He's got he wields his power in every which way he chooses, I suppose. But we're not without our. It's not been that extent, but back in the day, Steve Morgan, when he was owner, did similar when we had an embarrassing loss to Liverpool in front of Mick McCarthy, chastising the team after losing 3-0. So it happens, but yeah, you on the pitch, making a complete tit of yourself, disrespecting his manager like that. I was generally staggered. I
was actually more surprised that the t-shirt was still white because, look, I'm a bigger guy. I know big guys. Food just ends up on there. I'm surprised there wasn't Cheeto stains or some beans, that one little rogue bean that had ended up down there. That was all that was missing, I feel like.
Yeah. I think that the appropriate response from Nuno would just be kind of what it seemed like, which is a no response, and just let him look the fool as he does now to most of the footballing world. And they still have a shot at Europe, and they have massively overachieved. So that's absolutely insane, by the way. And, dude, if you want to pump your club up at Forest and you actually have some decent players at some of your other clubs that you own, why don't you try to funnel them to Forest? What's the point of owning multiple clubs if you're not even going to do that? Instead, you're going to go shopping in, Wolves Academy for $50 million players that are going to leave. Insane, dude. Whatever. He drives me crazy, Marinakis. But yeah, Drew said he should have said, "Don't be sad, mate." Yeah,
Drew with the winner. Drew with the winner.
Also the right answer. And I believe they still play Chelsea. They have they could still qualify for the how many Champions League spots are there actually 5 up for grab now? So there's 5, and then obviously there'll be a 6th English team, either United or Spurs. So they're very much still in it.
And then if Crystal Palace can get in as well, if they beat Man City, they can get into Europa, right?
That brings it down though, because if Man City win, they keep the Champions League place but give up the league.
Oh right,
that goes down, like how we got in. It drops, and that's where all of those middle of the range teams are still playing for.
You know what this is just making me think of? When Hobbs looked at Jurgen in the face and said, "We're going to push for Europe, mate." And this would be such a good year to do it. This would have been such a good year to stumble your way into 40-something, 50 points and be like, holy shit, we're going to Europe. We didn't even have that great of a season.
It's as bad as an NFL playoff end of the season, isn't it? You barely scrape a 500 season yet. Oh, there we go, made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Or even worse, the NBA. The NBA playoffs. Ooh, you can really scrap in there.
We could have been that 9-8 team making the NFC playoffs. That could have been us.
We could have
Alex, it just means we're going to win more money next year when you and I put money on Wolves to win the Premier League because the odds will be lower. There you
Oh,
go.
right. Of course.
Mhm.
Well, I feel an obligation to do that because imagine how we'd be kicking ourselves if we didn't place a $5 bet to win like thousands of dollars and, didn't get to like doubly enjoy the pleasure of that. All right. Thanks to all for your questions. And thanks to our friends at Esfuerzo Wines. As you see on the ticker there on the screen, if you're watching on the stream, you can head to esfuerzowines.com and get a 30% discount off your order if you use the promo code Vitor. Thanks for Esfuerzo. Thanks to all you listeners for your fun, creative questions every week. Keep them coming.
And with this being a review show, it puts a bow on that because we'll be back next week to preview that midweek game against Crystal Palace on May the 20th. So we will be back live on YouTube and then the podcast to follow on Sunday. So thanks to Alex producing, Danny on the socials, you, the wonderful listener or the streamer, because without you, a whole lot of Wolves wouldn't be a thing. If you've yet to do so, please give us a review, like, thumbs up, everything you possibly can when it comes to reviews, because that helps grow our exposure and extend the pack across the United States and beyond. So as we finish, just remember, if you have a bad day at work and get chastised by your boss, just look them squarely in the face and say, "Up the mighty Wolves."